Well, I think everybody was really delighted with the afternoon session, and somebody counted 143.
130 is what I heard.
130.
Is that right?
That's very good.
So we
Yeah.
did very well, and
Yeah.
a lot of providers. There you are.
A lot of providers and intense interest
Yes,
and
very.
good panelists.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it was a productive meeting, you know.
Well, we've done played musical chairs here, so so Marlene's coming, and who's else do I miss?
We're waiting for Marlene, and I think that's it.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, so Charlie, we're all here. We're all
Not
here.
there.
And we had a very great session today. The our opening session that Jack and Catherine Pearson did was just excellent. Ron, sorry. It's been a long day, but Ron and Catherine did that, was just superior. And then we had a luncheon, and then went on to the opening session, which was excellent also. And then finally was the panel with the four people that, we had 100, how many did you count?
130.
130, 100 people there, and it was good interchange, fascinating interest, a lot of providers. So we were really thrilled.
I thought the luncheon was supposed to have leading age people at it with us.
It was.
There was one leading age person. Sharver was there. She stayed. She started the process to get to the CP, what do they call it? Continuing education CEO.
Oh.
And then after she got
she was-
standing around for a while, she got hooked on the content. And so she went in and sat down.
Oh, good.
Oh, in the panel, you
Yeah.
mean?
No, it did.
Yeah, you're talking about the lunch.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Charlie, are you making some funny noise? Were you making a funny noise, or I guess it's just cell phone interference?
If you got it on conference mode, it'll,
Oh,
Dan has reminded us
Yeah.
of that too.
well, it's gotta be on conference mode, that's the only way it'll work, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
well-
well, the conference mode only gives feedback if there's many
Yeah.
participants, not, I think with one
We should be
participant.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get underway, and this is the special budget presentation. And we've had a subcommittee of Joe, Dan Seeger, I've lost track,
Ron and you.
and
Okay.
and we work very closely with Bennett. And so we've got a package here, and Joe's going to take over, and we'll go from there. So Joe.
Okay, my first question is, did everyone receive a written copy of the subcommittee's report? I apologize that it didn't get out until sundown on Friday. Part of my fault, because I was, took me a while to catch on that Dan had it right all along. But Charlie, did you get a copy of the report?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right, okay. So, and hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read it, and you have an idea of what the subject matter is going to be. This really got started back in a telephone conference call on October 8th, and we got into discussion of NaCCRA's financial condition. Jack Cumming had made an analysis, I made an analysis, and we may have arrived at it a little differently, but we were on the same page that we're on the verge of bankruptcy, and that got everybody's attention. And in that conference call on October 8th, the basic questions that Ruth asked us to address and asked the committee to address is, do our financials represent the true financial picture of our organization? Are we financially viable? If we're not now financially viable, what steps do we have to take to be viable? And if the steps are needed, do we have sufficient time to bring these steps into effect? or are we in an emergency situation? And to all of that, Ron added a very thoughtful question: how did we get into this situation to begin with?
Joan, you could just leave your coat right on the back, because we got couple people more to come. Oh,
What are you saying?
no, I don't, I already thought if you were gonna stay.
See upstairs.
Are you,
I'm staying here.
you're staying here?
I'll come get you.
Okay.
As chair of the committee,
You asked me to
Pardon?
shut the doors or something?
No, we still have people to come, so
I'm
just,
not coming. so-
okay, all right.
as chair of the committee, I believe that we've done a great job of answering those questions. And I want to thank all of the members of the committee for their patience and fortitude. In my mind, this is the biggest step that NaCCRA has taken since I've become associated with this, starting at the end of 2010. That's the biggest step that we've taken towards moving in the direction of developing a comprehensive strategic plan. And I'm very excited about that. I talked with Bennett, and if there are questions that we need to have him answer, he's going to be available on the phone tonight.
good. Excellent.
We can call him. So that resource is available. I would add that I've worked closely with Bennett since we formed an alliance with partners. In my view, he is a very patient, dedicated man. I think that he is frustrated because among the 20-something associations that he works for, I think most are better organized than we are. And as board members, we are, in my view, responsible for saying, these are our goals, we're all on the same page, here's where we want to get. We've hired you to develop the plan and implement it, and our job is to oversee it. And I think Bennett is frustrated that he hasn't gotten those directions from us. As I said at the start here, I think that subcommittee's work has made an important step in the direction of achieving that. The topics we're going to talk about tonight, I said 5 or 6 in my cover letter, and I hurt myself here because treasurers are supposed to be able to count correctly. I said 6 and there was only 5.
That's all right.
But that's a outcome of many redrafts. But the committee, as I said, put a lot of hard work into this thing, and they desperately want it to be successful. And I think we are all confident that it will be successful. We'll walk out of this room tonight very happy with the outcome. But we need to define what is success. And I'll introduce my introductory comments are intended to what are the measurements of success. And I am saying and suggesting that this meeting will be successful if we're able to provide all the board members an update on NaCCRA's true financial position, to add transparency to the whole process, and give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you want to ask and to make your suggestions. And you walk out of this room feeling very comfortable. We need to obtain your agreement on how NaCCRA is going to increase revenue. And in that score, we're going to talk about our current schedule of dues. Some important decisions have to be made there. We can help out on the revenue side by reducing operating expenses, and the report addresses that. And I've suggested that perhaps there's more work that can be done there. We're going to talk about increasing members. And we have a pilot membership program that the board's already approved. And we want to talk about that and getting that off the ground on January 1. That's our short-term strategy for membership growth. And then the final section deals with long-term strategy. There's a tremendous market out there, and our share of that market in terms of representing CCRC residents is extremely modest today. And I'm suggesting that we need to think big to get there. To start the meeting, we're going to first begin with a recount of where we stand on revenue and expenses. Since I've been treasurer, I've been providing these reports. And as I said last night, you know, at the end of 2010, we had a $500 operating deficit. Since then, the bottom line has been very positive, you know, and it looks good. And even though I have reminded everyone that has received my report that, yeah, it's great, but if you look at it closely, we've been very dependent upon donations. Mm-hmm. Most of them coming from a single source, which is unrealistic. Another thing is that we have booked lifetime dues in the year in which they were received and spending them in that year. You know, that really doesn't make sense. And, you know, we have to face up to those realities. Frankly, Ron has suggested we can do a better job of accounting, provide more transparency. They bring to the, he and Dan bring to the table some experience in this that I think we sorely need, and they've applied it very well. And we now have a financial exhibit that is a good start on that road towards transparency. And I'm very happy about that. But we may not be there yet. There are other things that we can do, perhaps that even better. And so I'm going to ask Dan to turn to the spreadsheet and walk us through that and answer questions, and ask him to say, you know, where are we doing good with this revised report? What more do we need to do? And to respond to your questions. Dan?
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, and thank you for your leadership of the Budget Committee, which kept us very well on track. Friends, if you look at the spreadsheet, there are several things that I just want to point out, which may be a little bit different than the spreadsheet you're used to seeing. We have made an effort to use a form of reporting to you which conforms to general practice among like not-for-profit organizations, so that we can bring the experience we have with other organizations to this, and so that other people, when they look at our spreadsheet, will not spend a lot of mental energy figuring out what the ball game is that we're playing, but will focus on the figures and their import. So the first thing is, you might say, we're trying to adopt the generally accepted language of financial reporting in the not-for-profit sector. And the spreadsheet that you see is a very simple one, where at the top we show the sources of revenue, and at the bottom we show the expenses, and then we have a line which shows the relationship between the revenue and the expenses, whether there's a deficit or a positive result. Now, the first thing I also want to point out is that on this spreadsheet, the first column, called Total 212, are real figures of a real fiscal year which has been audited. And one of the things that we as a board always want to do when we look at proposals is to be sure that we have in view some figures which are real figures, not hypothetical, speculative, proposed, or imaginary figures. So hopefully the board will always insist that there's a column of audited figures against which they can compare proposals. It's not that the proposals have to slavishly mimic the total figures, but to the extent that they depart, the departures should be rationally justifiable. The second thing is that the only wrinkle on this spreadsheet, which requires a little bit more mental gymnastics than your checkbook at home, is the fact that on a spreadsheet on the income side, it is important that the board receive a report of the total income for the period in question. But we also have to take account of the fact that the total income which arrives in the period in question may not be available to be spent in the period in question. And so the standard way of doing this is to have a section on the revenue side which is called transfers to and from reserves, which you see on line 16 through 19, where any sums that we show as income which are not available for use in the current year are subtracted, so that the total revenue for use in the year is a true figure and does not include funds which we are committed to saving rather than spending and to using in the future. And that's the only thing about this spreadsheet which I think is a little bit different than what you might be doing at home with your checkbook. So in the current year, 2013, you will see that the income from life members, which we anticipate receiving this year in the third column, is $7,500. But we are proposing that we only use 1/10 of that in any given year, because although there are more exacting ways you could figure this out actuarially according to the ages of each individual member, in general, it's Bennett's view that in FLICRA, by and large, a life membership of $150, if you spread it out over 10 years, it roughly matches. So therefore, we don't really, although we have to show the $7,500, we have to show that as coming in because you must see every nickel that comes in. You don't want to have someone stashing money off the books. It's just risky. You must see every nickel that comes in. At the same time, we don't want to pretend that we have $750 to spend, because in reality, we should subtract, and I can't read these red numbers, but we should subtract whatever that red number is on
Looks like
line
67.
18.
6750.
6750. We subtract 6750 and stash it for use in the future. That's all that means. And similarly, we have a very generous contribution which has a restriction on it. That's shown on line 13 of $15,000. Now, as a not-for-profit organization, we want always to be open to the opportunity to receive restricted contributions. Someone may be enormously interested in the model laws project, and if that will inspire them to give us yay so many dollars, we want to be able to receive that. But if we make a commitment to them to spend it on the model laws project, we can't use it for officer travel. You know what I mean? So we have to have a method in our bookkeeping where we show you that we've gotten this money, but we also don't pretend it's available. And so in this case...
Except that it would be for the model laws.
Except for the model laws. Right. So in this case, on line 13, we show the income in the current year of a generous restricted donation. And then on line 19, we show that we're not going to apply 12,000 of that. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the right numbers. 13,000 of that in the current year, because we show on line 27 that we're only spending $2,000 of it for its intended purpose. So therefore, there is a relationship that we have to keep in mind between line 27, line 18, and line 13. They all have to jibe in accordance with, and so we get, through this simple method, we get total revenues against which we have to measure our total expenses. So, and that's how we come out with the deficit shown on line 44 for the current year. Now, the other thing that we want to take a special look at in this spreadsheet is on the last column, which is for next year. Joe has already referenced the fact that we're proposing, as a budget committee, that we enact a dues increase. And so we see, and the report provides a very convenient table to show you how we arrive at those figures. You'll see that we're expecting increased revenues to help the budget in 2014, and part of your job this evening is to decide, we haven't really officially decided to do this dues increase yet, I don't believe.
It has to, as I understand, the board's got to approve this.
The board-
You know,
so-
it's.
So we're making a proposal to have a dues increase.
Yeah.
And we're also putting in the budget on line 10, I'm sorry, pilot project, where's the pilot project?
Before you leave the dues, because we've all
Right,
looked
sure.
at it, what slippage did you calculate? How many members will balk at the increase?
I am not smart enough to calculate that.
So
This is what we have to discuss.
yeah.
If you don't mind, Jack has put his finger on something we have to discuss.
Yeah,
You know, in other words, do we have confidence that this little committee has decided we're really going to get what we're going to get, because some people may be turned off by the dues increase and not do the dues
Yeah.
increase. And the reason why I want to just jump ahead a little bit is because the
Well,
pilot...
before we leave, so the assumption is that nobody leaves, is that where we are?
Well,
No, not yet.
No, not yet.
Don't jump
Not
there. It just,
Okay.
I don't want to suppress your question. Your question is absolutely important, but it's related to the pilot project. And this is something that's
Line 35.
very important. Line
35 first pilot.
Right, that's the cost line, but there's a revenue side for the pilot project. I just saw it, and then I lost it again. Life membership dues receipt, pilot project, line 9, individual members, line 9, where the board has already decided to launch a pilot project, and we're assuming that the new members gotten from the pilot project will generate $3,750 in new revenue. And the reason why, Jack, I just wanted to hold up on that for a minute, is that it's going to be really important in the year ahead that we don't mix up the new members that result from the pilot project with the renewals and expansion of the old members, because we don't want to wind up at the end of the year not knowing whether our dues increase has decreased the existing members, canceling out the good work that Bennett may or may not accomplish on the pilot project. So we want to get to Jack's question: have we made a reasonable assumption about the income that'll come from the existing base, and are we going to be careful enough to be sure that anything that happens with the existing base is somehow masked or canceled out by the pilot project, or what happens to the existing base makes the pilot project look worse than it really is. So we have to keep those two things separate.
Okay, well, I have a related question. I think you may have just answered it in passing.
Okay.
Because it says here that Reverend Nicholson has the board oversight for that project.
Right.
Is this project at Bennett's initiative, and do we have a description of the project?
We have a one-page description of the project.
Well, I saw a description of a number of metrics. It
Yes.
didn't describe the mechanism, did it?
No, it's not a very good narrative description of what's going to happen A, B, C, and D. You're right about that, and we're just kind of assuming that there exists a work plan which mimics the FLICRA work plan that will be inaugurated. Now, here we get, if I don't mind, I don't want to talk too much, we get into an interesting question about our relationship with Bennett.
But, right on.
And so, here's the issue. Bennett is, now my experience with Bennett is confined to intense discussions in the last few days. I have never met him, I don't know him before that. And what we have to worry about is that Bennett is intelligent, caring, honest. I'm convinced of all this on the basis of this days. Very, very overworked, very, very busy. And as a consequence, he kind of does things on the fly. And I'm not sure how much it's reasonable to depend upon him to be a self-starter in our cause. I just don't know. I know that my experience is that carefully crafted emails to him about what the problem is, followed by a telephone call, indicates that he's winging it on the telephone call. Now, his winging it is intelligent, and I've never had the feeling, on the basis of my other experience on boards, that he's doing anything that's not copacetic in every way. But whether, I mean, the reason why our pilot project, which we expected to start in September, is now going to start in January, is because Bennett was waiting for something from us, and we were waiting for something from him. And all I would say is that, just as one human being to another, and I'm not criticizing Bennett, I'm not against Bennett, he's been a big help in these last few days, but he's very busy, very distracted, and I honestly don't know what it is reasonable for us to expect from him
Let
for
me
$18,000.
interrupt to add my perspective,
Yeah.
because I've worked with Bennett from the day he came on board. He serves the association industry
Right.
with something on near 30 accounts. He has won all sorts of acclaim from his customers. I think that that's published knowledge, and he's circulated some of that. I think that NaCCRA is probably his most frustrating customer.
Right.
And I say that because I think that all or most of his other customers are providing him with more direction than we have. We've, frankly, in my opinion, fallen on our face in doing that. From my perspective, the board is responsible for setting direction and making it clear. Bennett is responsible for planning that and implementing that. The board is responsible for overseeing how well he does that. And if it doesn't turn out the way we want, then we have a right to step in. We should. But this board should not be in the business of micromanaging, because that's counterproductive. From the beginning of my introduction to Bennett, he's been insisting, you guys have got to take time to sit down. If it takes 2 or 3 days and you got to work 12 hours a day, you've got to sit down and develop a comprehensive strategic plan so that we know the direction that we're going in. The board does, and I know. And we have frankly not done that. Following the meeting that we had at, I forgot now where it was, in Virginia suburb, I called Bennett and he said, look it, I will work out a way to meet with you. I'm going to combine the meeting with another client, we'll do it in Virginia, because it's easy access for most of your members. I'm willing to take whatever time. And I sought support for that. And frankly, I didn't get it. Because there was, and understandably, some felt that, why do that? Why spend all the money? Because it's going to be the same outcome we had in Lakeland, because nothing was accomplished. We spent the whole evening on minutia, not all of it, but a good part of it. So we didn't accomplish. So if we have a 3-day meeting and all the expense, we're not going to accomplish it again. To me, that is totally wrong. There's no reason to feel that absence of confidence. We've got a lot of bright and dedicated people. We got to get our act together. And the best thing that we can do for Bennett is to give him a plan and say, this is what we expect. You plan it and execute it.
Charlie Park with a question on the topic for tonight.
Yes, you just go ahead, Charlie.
It's been my experience when you raise revenue, people really like to see an expense cut. If you look at the despicable show going on in our U.S. Congress, you'll see what I mean by that. But I was wondering, did the committee take any time to check with the state associations and see if they could support the kind of dues increase you're expecting for them? I know about 4 of the states are in limited financial straits, and it would be a big struggle for them to support that. Another one is you're going up on the community memberships, and in all honesty, the only reason communities join now is just to show their members that they, as a community organization, support developing NaCCRA. If you raise their dues without a sampling survey, you may have a big backfire there. Another thing, we in my state, when we want to raise dues, we always did a random survey of every chapter in the state before we did it. And I was wondering if we had done this with this town. I like, and I didn't understand from the chart, is the $20 individual dues. Is that a across the board for individual dues, or only for the first member in the household individual dues? We
Charlie,
should give the second member in the household a cut. And I just have those questions, and the dissertation on Bennett, I can tell you, I've known him for 10 years. He's an honorable man. He's a professionally qualified man. He needs to be told by the president of the organization what the organization expects from him.
We realize that.
Charlie, I'd like to answer your question, and my answer also goes back to Jack Cummings' question. What do we expect to lose? And another facet of that is, what are the alternatives? But I'm going to ask Ron first to address Charlie's question, because you've had some discussion with state associations, presidents, and is this an issue with them? What's your assessment of their willingness to accept a $100 increase in their annual dues, can we effectively market a $100 increase? And I'll go back again, and I use the example in my report. In year 2000, we were charging 15 bucks. Calculate that the U.S. rate of inflation, they ought to be paying over $20 for the same thing. I would also suggest that if we're not going to do that, go back and look at line 44. And year to date, deficit on our operation, over 13 grand. Our projected, 18 grand. We're down to a 4-figure deficit for the proposed 2014 budget. We get there largely because we're increasing dues. Now, if we don't do that, if we're concerned and scared to death, then we're going to lose a lot of people, and we back away from that, as we have in the past. And I understand that. But what are our alternatives?
As a state president, I can answer one of your questions.
Just-
In your community, the raise the due to $5.
We had two people talking at once, so,
Yeah, why don't we let Walt go
well,
first?
yeah, listen for Walt, because he's president of the North Carolina Association.
As a state president, I can tell you that it probably will be met by most of the states, but I think they would be much happier if you were to give them some sort of advance notice. Just to
Yes.
give you an idea, in North Carolina, we've already finished our budgeting and approved our budget for fiscal year 2014. And we have programmed $400 to go to NaCCRA. If you were to come in now and send us a bill for $500, that would hurt our budget, which is, we're just breaking even, quite frankly.
A good point.
Yes.
And in my mind, if we announce this by November 15th and say, everybody, you want to pay the old dues, you do it now before
Yeah,
January
for
1.
next year.
You know, all of you who are in arrears of your payment, and a lot of individuals are in arrears of their payment, if you want to get a deal of a lifetime, fine, we'll accept it. We'll accept it.
Let me go back.
Yeah.
Well, go
Well,
ahead.
let's not forget Charlie.
Charlie, yes, would you, now, Charlie, you there?
Charlie?
Charlie? No, we lost him.
Yes, no, I'm here.
Yeah, yep,
It's your turn to talk.
yep.
For 10 years, I know it's been a struggle to maintain the 9 state memberships we now have. I know that Florida is well organized and North Carolina is well organized, but that's not true of the other states. And like Walt says, the budget's already been completed for next year. And you know, it's just as easy for them to say, we're not going to renew, as it is to respond to, you better do it before the 1st because we're going to go up on it, you'll have to do it after the 1st. Because they'll take the position we don't have to.
Well, Charlie, though, my experience is that if you offer people a bargain, if they rush, they really like that. Is your experience different in that?
Well, you know, when you take a look at what the states do, you can document savings for the residents based on state accomplishments with new legislation. Unfortunately, the only thing we're able to document right now is the Lifeline and NaCCRA. We can go back and talk about imputed interest and the caps on physical and speech therapy, but that, you know, that's a dead issue right now. People looking for, what are you doing right now? I like the fact that we're going up to $20 on the first person in the household, but I was also hoping the committee would use some of that $5 to reimburse the chapters for their members to give them some revenue to operate with.
But we need revenue as well, and there have been no dues increase since we were born. It was $15 for individuals in 2000 and 2002. It's now still $15. When you configure, the price of stamps was 9 cents, and now it's going up to 45. I mean, come on, we have come to reach reality here that we must do what we have to do. And I think we've tried to make it as painless as possible.
Dan, excuse me,
Yeah.
Dan has suggested to me you know, maybe we ought to consider just increasing dues on the individuals. You know, let everybody else, the communities and the state associations, pay as they are, you know, if we're so scared of losing them. And I understand that argument, but how can we say to the individuals, look, we're charging you no increase at all, we're just adjusting for the rate of inflation, and make that argument to the individuals and say, hey, communities, state associations, it's something different there.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
And this is a new thought, it's not something I shared with Joe earlier, but my feeling was about the individual increases is that our constituency will barely notice the difference between $15 and $20 in a year's budget.
That's
I
right.
mean, they just won't.
That's right.
And so therefore, I think that's relatively harmless and not risky. Whereas, as we've just heard, you know, a state association is balancing a budget, and just like we're struggling here, they're struggling, and they will notice, you know, a 20% increase or a 25% increase. So therefore, that's why I was sort of hedging away from that. But now that we've heard this conversation, I'm wondering if maybe we should increase the dues of individuals right away, assuming they'll hardly notice, and say to the corporate members that are busy balancing budgets, is we need to raise the dues. We haven't raised them in so many years. We realize that your budget is struggling, and so we're giving you notice now that on your next budget cycle, whenever it is, please budget for this much. And just let the, you know, eat the loss, but assume that we'll minimize the defections by just sort of letting them weave it into their next budget, no matter, because we don't know where in their budget. Maybe everyone works on a calendar year as a fiscal year, maybe not. But you know, we can just say, you know, on your next budget cycle, please budget us for.
And we need to say, and if in 2014 you find that extra $100, we
Yeah.
need it.
You can
but
make a donation.
You can,
Yeah.
yeah, but if you have somebody on your account that says, well, I'll contribute that.
Right,
Let's invite, encourage that, but we're not going to legislate it.
right, right.
Could you all handle that in North Carolina, Walt?
Well, I think we could probably handle it. One of the issues is I've already received a bill for $400.
Oh, but that's, you know, if we delay.
So you're home free.
You're home free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pay your bill on time, you're home free.
So now, on the other, getting back to Jack's original question, though, the truth is that because this bankruptcy, if I can use that term, is, you know, sort of a late burgeoning emergency with a dramatic letter from the president-elect, you know, and that kind of thing, we haven't done the kind of sampling and, you know, testing the water that would have been desirable. We're just.
Well, I'm convinced with that. We're just doing a rough calculation, though. It looks like delaying this till the next budget cycle would roughly triple the deficit next year.
Let me,
And, you know, frankly, every time I get a bill in the mail, and I'm happy to pay it, but always in the back of my mind, is NaCCRA going to be functional in existence a year from now? We have to establish financial credibility. Without that, we're going to lose membership at all categories, within all categories.
let me make a sort of a left turn here that is, I think, relevant to the conversation. One of the reasons why I suggested that we start investing time cultivating the relationship between state chapters and NaCCRA has a bearing on the conversation we're having right now. Because we're doing some guesswork about how our affiliates in state chapter situations, which we already should know. And the reason we should know it is that we've got a relationship built with them that ties us together as equal partners in a single effort. And that's what concerned me. And in a word, a simple word, this is what I got from 5 of the 10 presidents. There is a severe vacuum between NaCCRA and the state chapters.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're already telling us that we're going along with you. We like the
Yeah.
idea, but we find something missing, that we're not well integrated into the work, the joint
Value
work
added.
that we have.
Value added.
And they've told us that twice. Now I want to go back and answer Joe's question when he said Ron has learned. I don't think Ron has learned enough about it in 2 conference calls with 50% of the state chapter meeting presidents in the conference call, other than what I've already shared with you. That's all we do know. But what we do know is when they tell you that there is a vacuum and that they are eager to integrate themselves at higher levels of participation between the national and the state chapter levels, they're telling you what you need to do. And if we had been doing that, and that's history, and nobody wants to go back and revisit history, you can't revisionists like to do that, but nobody else does. It's done, it's over, you can't change it, blah, 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 blah. But what we can do is we can start from here, because if we had that invested in the dynamic that we're talking about now, we wouldn't be talking about it.
That's right.
And I think you said a mouthful when you said 50% participate in the phone call.
Yeah,
Right.
That tells you about how fragile the connection is.
Yeah.
Although I think we went a long way today because there were a lot of people in that room who were proud to be part of Orange, featured at this national conference.
yep, there were.
Right. But the other part of the equation, which I don't want us to get,
My question
wait.
was the dues and rate increase for individuals for the first member of the household or for both members of the household?
Okay. Well, that's an embellishment, which I'm not sure. In other words, do we want to charge $20 for both members of a household?
For individuals.
Yeah, a household gets a single lifeline.
Right.
A lifeline is a major expense because we
Right.
mail it. One suggestion that I've had is, why, somebody said, why is NaCCRA still mailing this lifeline to me? I get it electronically. I don't even want to get it. I just throw it out as soon as it comes. Why are they doing that to me? And so that's,
It's another consideration.
I don't know whether you considered the electronic distribution, and I'm not a big fan of it totally,
Right.
but that's out there. But it certainly applies to the second member in the household.
Right. So maybe we're ready to decide that the second member in the household should only be charged $15. Are we?
I'd say go with the $20 per person.
You'd say go with $20 per person?
Yeah, it's an individual rate.
Joe, is your wife a member?
No.
My wife
No,
is not a
no,
member.
No.
Okay.
Frankly,
Sure, I would like to see a $20 for the first person and $15 for the second person. That way you would get more.
So your motion got seconded.
Household to become members.
If yours was a motion, it just got a
No,
second.
but you didn't
No,
make
I
it.
didn't make that motion. So let's consider that Charlie has made a motion. Is there a second for Charlie's motion?
I second it. I
Okay.
buy it. Marketing wise, it's a good step.
Okay.
The question I have,
call for the vote.
is what's the mechanics of administering that?
That's another Bennett's.
Yeah,
That's the thing
That's
for
their-
Bennett.
Okay, before we call for the vote, if we're voting and the effect is the $20 and the 15, I think we need to at least acknowledge Judy Moss's questions before you vote on the proposal.
What's her
because
question?
She did take the time to comment, and she expected that would be on the agenda at this meeting.
Right.
Jack, do you have those questions handy there?
Well, they're in my phone, which is in.
Well, I've got them on my.
Okay.
What, can you remember her question about
I've
the
got it.
second membership?
I just don't have that. I remember they were,
Okay. Here's Judy's questions, after she received the subcommittee's report. Let me pull it up here. Okay.
Jack, do you remember if she addressed this issue specifically?
Well, do you have all your email on there? Can you get your email without losing your minutes?
She did. She addressed it specifically, and she had a number of questions, and I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I mean, do you have your email on there? Can you?
I've got a
I don't
copy of
know
it
about
right
the
here. I'm trying to
Wi-Fi,
find it.
I don't know about the Wi-Fi and all that.
Walt's got it.
Oh, yours is dependent, okay.
Walt has it.
Right here.
Okay, okay, great, okay.
The questions are-
Okay, hey, great, wonderful. Okay, introduction, increase in dues. Were members adjusted for non-renewing members, and I assume they include new members of the FICRA board? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. No discussion on after 2014, asking new members to join, that's another
Right.
issue down the road. Current and projected revenue and expenses. New lifetime members booked as deferred revenue. Will there be any attempt to rebook, go back to the date of lifetime member and recoup deferred revenue?
So it doesn't seem like she's addressing, there's a lot more questions, but it
Okay.
doesn't seem like she's addressing this particular issue. So we have a motion and a second.
Are we-
Proposed membership dues. If 45 communities and each has 25 members, then there should be 1,125 individuals. That's,
No, that has to do with this budget, and I have a
Yeah.
quite serious question that's allied to that, so
Okay.
about the way you put these numbers.
Okay.
So, but the point is, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, but if the motion is to approve the $20, which I think it is, with 15 for the couple,
Right,
then once we adopt that motion,
right.
then this discussion is chilled, and both Judy, Walt, and conceivably Judy, have input that might affect the vote. So I think you have to allow full discussion before you vote.
Okay.
Okay,
but that's a-
here, we're.
Are you asking Walt not to say his point, or?
No, no.
No,
No.
Okay.
About the vote on this, my only concern is the timing of the implementation. To do it instantly, in my mind, is without notification to members so that they know what's coming. We talk about transparency in CCRCs, let's have some transparency in
what
ourselves.
is our fiscal year? From
January 1st to December 31st.
I don't think you have to stay with it, but if you don't, the projected deficit is going to grow. If you were to make it July 1st. But the fact is, the train left the station with the last lifeline, so our major communications instrument is not available to us to
Can't-
communicate the reasoning
December.
behind it. Now,
Can't we send out a special edition of Lifeline, December 1, one-page announcement?
The deadline for the next lifeline is the 2nd of December.
yeah.
So which means it would go out before Christmas.
Okay, and so there, seems to me that's an option, Send out an announcement in November, one page
In December.
in December, announcing that effective January 1, we're going to increase, here's the new schedule. If you pay your bill now, or if you want to pay your bill in advance, fine, that's fine. We'll accept that.
And each person their dues are due a year from the time they last did, so there's no, everybody in.
It's an anniversary that they're
It's your
paying.
anniversary,
Okay.
so it'll be gradual. So if everybody chooses to pay their next year's dues before the
Exactly.
first of the
If my
year.
dues are come due on December 1 and I pay them now at $15, that's good. That's good.
Ruth, can I ask Walt a question? In North Carolina, with your extremely well-organized for Eastern District, Central District, Western District, how do you anticipate residents would respond to increases in view of how little they're paying on the state level?
I honestly don't think there'll be a serious drop. We will make an effort to make sure that it's publicized and that we don't lose any members.
Very good.
I mean, my intent is we should gain members rather than lose members. To the next.
Just
One more question and we're gonna, call for a vote. Go ahead.
I still don't have an answer to my question on, are we after $20 per household, where we're getting 30 now, are we wanting to get 35? By charging $20 for the first member and 15 for the second?
Yeah, you did get an answer.
Let me tell you something the committee has not looked at. In Florida, the majority of the members are couples. Ingleside at Rock Creek, the majority are couples. A large number in North Carolina are couples.
Okay,
So if you start talking about $20 per household, you're going to take a big hit in those areas by people just joining one person in the household for
Charlie.
$20 where they're now paying $30.
Charlie, I don't think you understood the motion. The motion is $20 for the first person, 15 for the spouse.
That's
That's,
correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, we're
So
going
this-
to call for the question.
Okay.
Just one more comment before you vote, and it's not gonna change how you think about the vote, it might encourage you. But I think Walt's, given what I think I know based upon limited contact with the state chapter presidents, the conversations that I've had, I would interpret what Walt's saying is that it just feeds that sense of distance that they're already feeling when you don't give them notice. In other words, if you drop it in their lap, the stage is already set for them to say, well, my good gosh, can't you, one of the questions I would have is, can't you plan any better than that, and to drop it on me and make it due quickly?
Okay, but the motion is not about the scheduling or
Yeah.
the notice. The
Yeah.
motion is about the dual.
Would you read the motion, please?
Okay. The motion is, as Jack just said, is NaCCRA planning, does NaCCRA want to plan to charge
No.
couples for their membership dues, annual membership dues, in a way where the first member of the couple pays $20 and the second member of the couple pays $15? That's the motion, and it's been seconded.
and, yeah, and just as a point of clarification, I believe this will, if we vote for this, will resolve the individual members' dues, and then we could move on to the state question of voluntary.
That's
All
right.
right.
So, and the alternative to this motion would be charging both members of the household $20, but we're voting.
Well, we're now $20 for
and
the first
15.
member,
Now we
15
call
for the
for the
second,
question.
and we're going to vote. And all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Charlie, did you vote?
Yes.
Good.
What, how did you, oh, I couldn't see what you said.
Yes, he said yes.
All right, yeah.
Okay,
All right, so it's, the motion has passed
Right.
okay,
and is adopted. Thank you.
okay.
All right, for
Now.
purposes of discussion, I would like to make another motion.
Yes,
And that is, I think these dues are, changes are much more reasonable than the ones that were proposed last April, or whenever it was that we,
Yeah, I agree.
and I think they're much more acceptable. But I have concern about the timing of implementation. And so I'd like to move that they be effective on July 1st.
is there a second to that motion?
Well,
I want to,
Please second it, for somebody, so
we need a discussion
So
about
we
that.
got this.
well, I need a clarification, because I don't know whether you're talking about the communities, the state, or what.
All of them.
All of them.
I think no matter who you are, or whether you're talking about an organization or an individual,
And you
if you're going
wouldn't,
to change the dues,
would you
need to
accept
give
an
them some-
amendment to take up state and community as two separate topics, or does it have to be one?
You can modify it if you want to, but my premise is you need to give them some advance notice, and 6 months advance notice is not unreasonable.
6 months.
that would be 1st of July, as of the
Yeah,
1st of July. Kate, you
help
wanna
me,
go
help
downstairs?
me, help me with the 6 months.
You wanna
What's
go
the difference
downstairs
between
and
3
just go
months
back
and
to the
6
room?
months?
Well, one of the things that the delay is gonna do is it's gonna change your budget numbers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
did,
it's not like all the individual members are gonna have to pony up 20 and 15 January 1, because they're all staggered. Some are January, some are February, some are March, some are April, some are May. The dues are calibrated on when you join, so that only the, however many there are,
That's not my proposal.
okay, but I'm,
My proposal is that the dues would change for everything
Effective,
on July 1st. That's my motion.
Everything except individuals.
Everything.
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 If you're going to make, it's sort of like the Obama thing. If you're going to give the corporations a buy, why don't you give the individuals a buy? We complain about transparency in CCRCs. Why can't we be transparent ourselves?
Okay, so this is these would take effect 1 July.
Yes, all of these dues changes as well. My proposal.
I'll second it so that we can have discussion, but I'd like an estimate of the financial impact.
yeah, that's the question I have.
Well, because we were gonna
Have to go back
gain
to the board.
$10,000.
So we cut it in half.
And so we cut it in half. It's gonna add $5,000 to our deficit, to our budget for 2014.
But if I'm a
As a
member,
deficit.
I'd like to speak against it. If I'm a member and I'm asked to increase it, and you tell me that the dues have not increased since 2000,
Yeah.
and we're not asking for an increase, we're asking for a cost of living increase
Yeah.
that we desperately need. This is an emergency. This is not, and the amount of money we're asking for Jack to cough up is $35.
I'm done coughing.
No, but for anybody,
Well,
for
no,
any
I
individual.
know, I'm using you as a
Joe,
pony.
or Jack, or anybody
Yeah,
else.
no, I mean, first of all, it's not a big sum. Second of all, we are in a crisis. We've got to say, we are in a crisis. And we pussyfooted around this and
We putzed it around for 4 years and
And I
we've never
just-
made a decision.
We have to
We have to
demonstrate
either
to our
shit or get off
membership
the
that
pot.
we are capable of competent financial management.
And saying we're in a crisis is not a way to do that.
No,
Don't.
God, no.
But I think we've got to
Words
acknowledge ourselves.
can be changed.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point, there's a motion which has been seconded to make all these dues increases effective the 1st of July.
Which everyone understands will increase the deficit next year by $5,000.
That's it.
Ruth, does the fact that 289 have not renewed their membership impact on our discussion at all?
Well, what
It's
yes,
not 289, it's 199.
but the issue is, we have letters in process, and I've got them ready to mail as soon as I get home, to people from Fraser Meadows, from people from Ingleside at Rock Creek, and there are other places that we're sending these to, but what that impact is going to be, I do not know.
Okay, I have
I'm one of those 199, and I haven't had time to sit down and write a check.
And the number is 150, by the way, we've changed yours.
I have
Wait a minute, please, Jack.
I have a question, a parliamentary question. Are you permitted to withdraw a second?
I don't.
Can I withdraw my second? Because now that I'm hearing the deficit impact, I'm thinking that we can't afford to do it.
Well, your option is to turn it down.
Yes.
But if
And then we make a new
if I
motion.
withdraw the second, then it depends on another second.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And I think you can
So,
withdraw.
yeah, I think you can, so you can take that
And so
second.
I withdraw the second.
All right, so now would you read the motion as it is at this point?
Okay, the motion
No,
is
we
to
don't
make
have a
all
motion.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
second.
in. No,
No.
the
Motion is
motion
made.
The
was.
motion is,
Yes,
the motion is to make all dues changes in all categories effective July 1st.
Okay.
And the corollary, which is not part of the motion, is that that'll increase the deficit by $5,000.
All right, so, but this is specific to just individual members, or we haven't?
No, all members in all
That's the whole-
categories.
the
All right.
whole membership schedule changes.
Okay.
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
Yes, we need a second now.
Okay, to see if Charlie, because he's,
Charlie, will you second that?
What are you talking about now?
We withdrew, Jack withdrew his motion. I made his second to the motion. So now we have a motion on the floor, but it needs to be seconded.
and the question is whether to make the dues increases effective January 1st or July 1st, with delay costing $5,000 and increasing the deficit from $2,000 to $7,000? That's the question.
In 2014.
In 2014 for calendar.
But it's also an issue of transparency. Are we providing our membership with adequate notification
That's right.
of dues changes?
Yeah,
But-
so there's two things in play.
As part of the discussion, don't forget, we still have a lifeline going out in December, which would be notification. And the individuals, since they pay on their anniversary, will have some notification. I had proposed earlier, and that would cost money, I had proposed earlier that we make the corporate dues increases a function of the next budget cycle for the respective organizations. Remember when I
Yeah,
suggested?
and Walt made a good point about the Obamacare, because I find that compelling. What, could we compromise on March 1st?
Sure, I'm willing to compromise on that.
Are you going to second on March 1st?
Yeah,
Then we have to withdraw the motion or
No,
amend.
whatever.
I
amend.
propose an amendment to the
Okay,
motion.
so the motion is now amended
Oh,
that
whatever.
all dues changes in all categories, individual and corporate, will be delayed until March 1st.
For
Because
the
the Jan-
purpose,
The January-February issue of Lifeline doesn't go out until well into January.
yeah, we'll do,
It's gonna go in
Well,
December.
yeah, and we're,
Yes.
I second that motion.
Thank you,
okay,
Charlie, I second the motion.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment for Bob's dissertation on being in a crisis. We are in a crisis, but you're blind to the real crises. The crises are that we are not talking about increasing our members to 50,000, and that would take care of our revenue.
Well, that's
That's the
on,
crisis we're in.
all right, but that's the plan. There is a membership plan, and we're gonna get that underway as well.
yeah, okay, the one thing I wanted to add was, to the motion, I guess, was that we're delaying to March 1st for the purpose of allowing adequate communication.
Yeah.
Because if we don't add that and nobody communicates, then we're just gonna be saying, oh, well,
Here we go.
nobody told me I was supposed to communicate. I can't do anything unless I get direction.
Yeah.
And so, yes,
So the motion directs communication.
all right, now the
And
motion is on the
that
floor.
goes to Bennett,
Has been
that goes to
seconded.
Marlene, it goes to Judy Moss, it goes to all our communication officers. All of our communication resources are committed to communicating the need for this in as positive and constructive a manner as we can. Is that a fair statement of consensus?
Very fair.
Are we ready to vote? Would you read it one more time?
Yes. The motion is that all dues changes in all categories for individuals and groups will be delayed until, or will take effect on March 1st
To allow for communication.
to allow for communication.
Yeah, we need that because otherwise
Okay.
Bennett doesn't know that he's been told to
Yeah.
do it.
And we are gonna have to notify.
That captures one of my favorite sayings is that what's everybody's business is nobody's business.
Yeah, we got it all.
And we've had some difficulty with that as an organization.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
There's nothing embarrassing or wrong about saying, whoops, we ought to do this differently, so here it is, we're gonna change it so
Yeah.
that we do better.
And that's our, can you live with that?
I got some stories that
We'll live with that.
at an appropriate time I would tell about that.
I'm ready for a vote.
But there's nothing wrong with saying that you maybe have.
I'm not ready to hear about those two horses farting. I'm just not ready for that.
Thank you, Jack.
All in favor of the motion that was just read by Dan, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Charlie, did you vote?
I'm
Yes,
decided.
All right, and any opposed? The motion has passed.
If comment, Madam President, if everybody recollect in the last lifeline, I had an article in there where I
Saw that.
indicated that I was going to propose a dues increase for the first member of the household to $20 at this meeting.
Saw that.
But I also had a caveat to that for all the communities that formed a chapter, they would get $1 per member back
But
to
not for
help
me.
them operate their chapter.
Okay, well, we'll have
There
to,
has been some publicity already.
so we'll consider that.
I
yeah.
think Joe Walton was great, it had an unusual vote that he wanted to explain. Is that correct?
Yeah, I understand what Walt's saying, but at the end of the day, I think that we have the capacity to get an announcement out by not later than December 1, even if it takes a special announcement. It's an added incentive for individuals and communities and state associations to act quickly.
Yep.
Because, you know, if you got a sale, send your order in now, because it's going to be gone tomorrow.
Well, the sale
And
now runs.
I think we have the capacity to do that. And
So
do it
what was
efficiently.
your vote? I still haven't heard
So
what your vote.
he voted aye.
I'm opposed to the
Voted
motion.
negative.
I will support a motion to increase it January 1.
Okay, so you were opposed, so it still
It is
passed.
still passed.
I understand.
And everything you've said is true March 1, right? But you're still opposed.
I'm still opposed.
Okay.
Can I interrupt the business to ask, does anyone remember who seconded the earlier motion about,
He seconded the Earl, Jack seconded.
I seconded it, we
And then he
drew
withdrew
it,
the motion.
it was modified,
And then-
re-seconded by Charlie.
Yeah,
Charlie seconded
that's the way it
it.
happened.
but Charlie made the motion originally.
No, Walt made the motion.
I'm talking about the motion before that.
The initial motion.
The motion about the 20 and the 15.
Oh,
Oh,
no, I don't know, I think that was,
oh, yeah, that wasn't
Charlie
much.
made the motion. Who seconded it? I just don't remember.
So that wasn't me, but there might have been, but there was a
Who's
second.
willing to be?
I second the motion.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Charlie.
You seconded something.
Yeah, it may have been Bob
My
Nicholson.
shoulders are wide.
All right.
I appreciate you're doing
Sorry
this.
to
See, this has been sheer agony. And as, you know, when I think of people, when I was a little kid, I have to say this, and if you've heard it before, just stop me. But I have three daughters. We had it, when they were in high school, gasoline was 33 cents a gallon. They could go fill up the tank of gas for $1. And they could travel all weekend on $1 worth of gas. For God's sakes, what's wrong with us raising these dues a little bit? Everybody can pay extra for stamps, for Tide to wash your clothes. What's wrong with us? So I'm sorry but I just cannot handle us not being able to do what we have
Well,
to
for
do.
future thinking, does anybody know why we've been so resistant?
I have not a
Are we
clue.
scared out of our pants?
Yes, I swear. Why, Charlie, haven't we raised the dues before?
Beg your pardon?
Why haven't we raised the dues in 12 years?
You know, when you stop and think, the organization is really only 13 years old. So we've been struggling just to get it to hold its own till we got to the point where you took over. I don't think we could justify raising the dues because we provided a limited benefit. We operated throughout the years of donations of community members and state members who really got not much from us other than the opportunity to send a representative to sit on the board at each of the meetings. And at one time, every state always had a representative there.
Uh-huh.
And then, for some reason or another, they started falling off. And Bob Naga in Connecticut was the last one to drop down.
That's
And I
right.
would just love to know why he quit coming.
I know. Well, anyway, we have turned the corner, and I thank everybody for
Okay,
that. Okay, Joe.
I think we're ready to move on to the
Please.
next topic, and thank you for your,
Well,
But still, our biggest problem, though, is members.
Staff-driven issue over a long history. My personal opinion is that what we have done is we've wrapped ourselves in the problem of history when the rules of the game have changed. And so we need to change with it.
Okay, shall I repeat the motion and see, and then the president can see if there's a second? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The motion is that the president-elect contact Bennett, and from Bennett get a clear description of the pilot project, and that it begin on January 1st.
That's not
That's not it?
That's not concise enough to, is a descriptor.
The motion is that the president-elect...
What, Charlie?
Is that Bob making the motion?
No, we're just considering a possible motion. Bob had said, and Dan is trying to write the motion down.
Okay. The motion, as I understand it, is that the president-elect should contact Bennett in order to get a description of the pilot project and be assured that it will begin on January 1st.
Or to
The
implement
third part of
it.
the motion fell away.
All right.
Can I make a comment on that, Madam President?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say we should have a second before we do any more. Anybody second
I'd
this?
like to second it with the amendment that Judy Moss, if she's willing, review the proposal put together by Bennett, because she had the strongest reaction to the first. There were some people who thought that that one-page list of made-up numbers was adequate, and I'm concerned that we might accept something that was just thrown together and had no substance.
And I would add to your comments that as public relations, having responsibility for public relations, she needs to look at the details of the project and sign off on it. If she has to be satisfied that the project, as Bennett proposes to do it, makes sense from a PR standpoint.
Do you accept that amendment?
No, I do not accept that, and I do not think that Judy needs to be in the motion, and I would object to asking her to sign off on it because she has not performed in a public relations matter that has benefited the mission of this board. I am very, very disappointed in the public relations aspect, and I think it's been a barrier rather than a benefit.
Bob, what is your view of the pilot?
Of the what?
What, as membership vice president, what is your conception of the pilot?
That's another subject. I think that I want to address that because I can't be involved. But I want us to get it nailed down that a person here, the president-elect, will get in touch with Bennett and will get a clear description that the board can have from him, and we'll have a date specific when it starts.
January 1st.
That's the clean motion. I don't want to run it by Judy. I don't think there's any advantage to that. I think there are only disadvantages.
Okay, well, can you comment? Because in here it says that you would have the primary oversight, and you just said, I can't be
No, but
involved.
Joe didn't hear what I told him. Sometimes he doesn't pay attention to me. But we'll discuss that.
Well, let me...
No, let's take the motion and get it underway. That's what I want to do. Then I'll address that.
I'm looking for a second.
Second the motion.
Okay.
Would you read it again, please?
Sure. The motion is that the president-elect should contact Bennett to get a clear description of the pilot project and to ensure that it begins on January 1st.
And it was seconded by Jack.
And seconded by Jack.
All right, is there
Can I
any?
make a comment, Madam President?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Charles Falk, we've received this submitted already, and I know my community has already formed a chapter already, and I know that a community in Ohio has already formed a chapter. The only thing that's missing, the whole pilot is based on what Bennett done in Florida. He created, and we always talk about North Carolina and the 3 districts. We have 7 districts in Florida to make transportation even less costly. And each of those meet, and then we have an annual meeting. the concept is based on a community getting a minimum of 25 members and forming a chapter. The chapter has a board, they have their own bylaws, and they basically make sure the community gets political candidates and political office holders to come out and speak to the community where they will keep up not only with the state legislation but with the national legislation. The elements that's missing in the pilot right now that I was hoping would get voted in at this meeting, we in Florida, when they form a chapter, they get $2 per resident back to offset chapter expenses. I was hoping at this meeting to get at least $1 back to members that form a chapter where they can have money to support their chapter activities.
I'd like to say something.
But the point is we are getting bogged down.
Well, let me unbog.
All right,
Unbog, Jack, unbog.
Okay. The board on, at a recent telecom, I can't remember which one, they all merge in my mind, but they approved the concept that was used to build the Ohio organization and that is being implemented in NaCCRA. That has nothing to do with the pilot. They did not approve, hold on a second, Charlie, it's my turn. Charlie, I have the floor
Just
for
a
a moment.
minute,
if
Jack
it's
is
okay.
talking.
They did not approve the rebate. The question was on the table whether that was an essential part, and that was never responded to, so the assumption was that those people who were familiar with the rebate concept did not feel that that was sufficiently essential to make that a part of it, so that was removed from that. But that is simply was approved as a membership option. This pilot project is something that came from Bennett. Bennett, I believe the word pilot came from Bennett and Joe Walton. It's a totally separate thing. I have no idea what it is, but it's separate from what Bob Smith did down there in Lakeland. It's separate from what Mel Grossman did, and I'm dying to hear what it is.
And so that this is the new concept, the new pilot. And so at this
So
point.
we have a motion and we have a second.
Is there any other discussion? Would you read it one more time?
Yes. The motion is that the president-elect should contact Bennett, get from Bennett explicit description of the pilot project, and make arrangements to have it launched on January 1st.
Can we say, and share it with the board?
And sure, okay. Description of the pilot project, which will be shared with the board, and which will begin on January 1st.
Is that a good time frame? We have,
Yes.
is that all right? All right. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
One of the comments I would make, now that the motion has been dealt with, one of the questions Bennett's gonna ask is, what do you mean by description of the pilot project?
Well, we have the descriptive package. You have that one, it's a single page sheet.
Yeah, but that's not, what people have read there is not, it's not what
Bennett
people,
has
what this board is
repeatedly
looking
said
for.
that he knows what he's proposing,
And so we just need
and
to know
that we have not asked him to do it.
what we need
We're
to.
now asking him to do
Yeah.
it.
And what we do have is not that clear to me.
So he'll simply,
Well,
really,
I'll make, I will ad-lib
Yeah.
the meeting. But I wanted to make sure that you understood that the question may come up, and if you have a desire for elaboration on what already exists, you need to define what that is.
Maybe it's, I'm not the only one who didn't understand.
Well, when I call him up and I say, Bennett, we want a description of the pilot project, he can say to me, well, I already gave it to you.
Yeah, but
I don't have it.
I think the issue
No,
is his
Didn't tell me
plans to
anything.
implement it.
Okay.
That is uncertain.
That's a little bit different,
Yeah,
yeah. And the plan to implement.
yeah.
There you go.
And that's
Yeah,
what-
there you go.
Because we considered the property, because you
There's
find, you gotta
40-page
figure it,
document
implement.
that details the plan.
Well, that for
Well,
you, we have the guide that we're using for the chapter council
Yeah.
that the board's already approved. So we're
Yeah.
sending that,
So-
that's a separate program. That's a membership development program that's independent of any pilot. Now Bennett said he had some other pilot and he put together a one-page summary and we're saying,
Okay.
we don't understand what the pilot is, would you elaborate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
And all we know is that we thought it was going to start on September 1st, and it didn't. And somehow it appears that Bennett was expecting something from us, and we were expecting something from Bennett, and we didn't know.
Yeah, and that,
What's
and-
everybody's business is nobody's.
exactly, and, yeah, and I, you know, with all of this uproar about one thing and another, I may have dropped the ball, I'm sorry, but anyway, we'll pick it back
I
up
don't think
again.
anybody's to blame for
No,
all
no,
of
no,
that.
no, no.
Okay, are you, go ahead, Joe.
No,
Okay,
I know, but excuse me.
and I'll just say, my understanding of the pilot, that one page,
Yeah.
much of it is borrowed conceptually from that program in Florida with
Yeah.
the 40-page
Yeah.
document.
It is.
You know, and I'm comfortable with that. What I'm not comfortable with is knowing what his implementation plan is.
And that's what we need to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, is the pilot then different from what the board has already approved as a membership thing?
I don't think
We
so.
don't think so.
No.
I
Well,
don't think
well,
so.
then why is it called the pilot?
Because
But-
it's new in,
The pilot identification, as I recall, came from several of us who said, if you do a pilot of something that already exists and has worked, and you call it a pilot to see how effective it would be in a different venue, so you call it a pilot. So it was a hedge against the risk question.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of risk in that kind of approach.
Okay, so what Bennett needs to do is define that other venue and what he plans to do
Flush it
about
out, flush it out.
it. Yeah, that sounds good, okay.
Okay, I think.
Now I understand.
I think,
are we ready to roll?
I'm ready to go back to the spreadsheet.
No,
Okay.
excuse me,
Wait,
my
Jack,
name,
one more
no, my
thing.
name has been taken in
Oh.
vain. I've got to clear my name.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because Joe is a very respectful person, he knows I'm membership, and he put me in there, and I said, Joe, don't put me in there, and the reason is this. I'm in the none zone. We don't have states, we have very few communities, I have no experience of state pilot kind of things, and I said, I can't handle it. I'm both geographically out of it and intelligently out of it. I said it belongs to a NaCCRA person like Ron, who is in touch with state presidents where the pilot will take place in one of those 9 states with Bennett. I cannot have anything to do with it because I have absolutely nothing to contribute. If you want to talk about guerrilla action to recruit NaCCRA members in states where we have nobody, I can do that. And I've done it. Mostly on my nickel.
well, my understanding
Yeah.
in the conversation with Bennett, it's principally targeted to states where we have no organization now. It's going to be principally done by mail. It's not going to require you or anyone in his staff to spend a lot of time on the roads going out and visiting these communities. It's the details of how that's going to work that I don't understand. But he said this is principally going to be a mail campaign.
But
That's
that's a different,
that's the way we're going to.
I understood it was going to be in one of the 9 states where we have state.
And let me back up to my comments about Judy. Let me modify.
All right.
I understand where you're coming from.
All right.
What I suggest is that this may have some PR application.
and this is off the record, but I wouldn't bet my bonnet that she's gonna do anything about it. to-
Well, at the end of the day, Bob has to take the lead on that. It falls in his bailiwick. He's gonna have to assess that, and if Judy isn't gonna deliver on what is needed, it may be we can do this without a lot of PR stuff. But I think at the end of the day, you have to make that call.
All right.
In the meantime,
Yeah.
we're searching for new blood for the board, and a PR person, somebody who's skilled at writing.
Yeah.
This is a very, very important person we've got to find, because it just hasn't happened.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Bob,
Okay.
so I'm not gonna put in the minutes anything.
Oh, no,
about-
don't,
No,
please.
no. Okay, I think we've solved, we've
Yeah.
moved beyond the pilot.
But I thank everybody for the clear thinking and good thinking, and this is good.
The next topic on the agenda is addressing our
We haven't
financial
finished the
problems.
spreadsheet yet.
I haven't finished the spreadsheet yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, I think, I mean, before we leave the spreadsheet, I want to be sure everyone understands how the spreadsheet works, and they understand the things, but we just have to look now at line 44 in the, and the implications in the year 2014. And we have to relate that to line 51. According to line 51, we have $35,000 in assets. 35,300 in assets. From this must be subtracted the $15,000, which is not available for general use. And therefore, we have something like $21,000, and we have two deficits. We have 18 and we have 2. So we have a match almost of our deficits with our assets. However, we've made a 3-month adjustment so that we really have larger deficits than we have assets.
Yeah, we're $2,500 cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something the board has to know. And that we have that 2,500 if everything above works out. Now, I mean, some things might come more and some things might come less, and the variances might balance each other out. But if anything up above becomes it comes out more pessimistically than we imagine, we have a bigger deficit. So we're not really, we are bankrupt. I mean, as of 2014, we will be bankrupt.
Yeah.
But we will be thinking positively, and we're going to pull out.
Yeah.
So just as long as everyone understands that, and as long as everyone understands how the presentation works.
Well, I think you gotta do more than just think positively. I don't.
I'm sorry, but I have, I've been,
I understand, but that's the idea of a faith-based CCRC. Well, we knew we spent your entrance fees, but we're praying that there'll be money there for you when you need it late in life. And we've got to be better than that.
yeah, and I know that, Jack. It's just been a hard road these last couple
Well,
of years.
maybe.
And I can see the horizon.
Have we gone as far as we can go for now, do you think? Is that?
I think, if I could make a suggestion, I think we've gone as far as we can, but what we should have in our back of our mind is this issue, which may mean that sort of halfway through the year, we may decide not to have a second face-to-face meeting.
But the conference calls have been quite productive, I think.
Yeah. So there is, in the back of our mind, there may be a mid-year correction we can make in the expenses by deciding not to have a second face-to-face meeting or by making some other decision.
Superb. Perfect segue to the next topic.
Okay, good.
What have we done about reducing our operating expenses? And as I said in the cover report, that the committee did look at this. We considered options, among them to some of the contracted services that we've got out, take them back. Instead of having Bennett write checks, the next treasurer would go back to doing that. And the bottom line is that, if committee members think I'm misinterpreting where we arrived at, but I think the bottom line is fundamentally we want to stay on the course that we're at now. We've made this commitment to grow the business. We've got to maintain quality. It's problematic to go back and try to count on
volunteer senior people, in all due respect.
I know.
Yeah, you know, it just doesn't make sense. But I think Dan's point is right on. You know, we can make changes. We can take a hard look at the level of reimbursement for the next meeting in Connecticut. You know, if we were paying 100% of hotel bills that qualified in the past, we can cut that to 80% or some percentage. That can be done.
We could also cut the size of the board.
Well, I don't see that's,
Well-
at this time, the board is 10 people, and at this
Yeah.
point, I think we need to maintain that because it's just a new concept here.
Yeah.
So let us, with the implementation of the new bylaws, so let's give this more than
Okay.
6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have about 5 minutes?
Certainly.
Okay. I would like to make some comments about this spreadsheet that Judy has in her email.
Now,
made
she
some
has
com-
not seen this.
Yes, she did.
She did
She
see
did,
this.
She was commenting on it.
she had made some comments about the arithmetic that went in between the dues portion of the report
Right.
and the spreadsheet portion. And I was doing a little bit of arithmetic myself, and I tend to agree with her. However, I don't want to make a motion. What I want to do is make some comments and let you think about them. There are things that can wait for another meeting, or maybe we can discuss them later in the year when we know a little more about what our expenses are going to be like. So these are comments for you to think about more than anything else. First of all, the income from individual members doesn't seem to match the projections and your proposed dues increases. Right now, we have about 890 individual members, which would give us something like, at $20, something like 17,000 instead of 20,000. You're projecting that we will have a membership of 1,000, and then you're adding in a pilot program with new membership. But the dollars you put down for the pilot program are not divisible by $20, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. These are just issues with the numbers that are put on it.
But the new numbers were included in this projection, so. You know,
I
what
realize,
we just
but
did.
that if you're going to charge $20 for a membership, the amount on your budget should be divisible by 20. It's not. Okay, this is just projections that I'm talking about. So I think we need to think a little more about these kinds of things when we put these projections together. The reason I'm not making a motion is these are just guesses.
Yeah,
And these guesses that you put down are as good as any other.
well, excuse me, but just to clarify that, I've never, as long as I've had this job, known exactly how many members and how we count. You go down the page and we have 1,000 members, you know. Some are paid up, some are bills outstanding.
Yeah.
They're waiting for guys like me to pay my bill.
Okay.
But I'm still a member, you know. And I made an optimistic calculation.
That's fine.
On this. I understand where you're coming from. But, you know, and we're right. We've got to work hard at getting a better handle on how we do these
How
counts.
did you allow for the rolling anniversaries? Since the increase goes into effect on the anniversaries,
Yeah,
how'd you take that all into account?
yeah, well,
Yeah, well, all of those things
Yeah.
are changing because of the motions we made here today. And all I want to say, I don't want to discredit these numbers or the way they were coming from. I just want to say that the comments Judy made seem to be valid in my mind, but they don't reflect anything that we need to change They just reflect that we need more explanation, like we need more explanation on the pilot program to understand what they are. I wanted to make one comment about the expenses. I would like to suggest, since we are going to have a pilot program, we put down $3,750 for membership retention and recruitment. And I know we're going to have to spend some money there, but if we've got a pilot program, I would say let's be careful about that and not spend it all right away, because we may not need it,
Right.
all of it.
And can I say, something that as a board we have to be aware of is that there's a great risk when you're making a budget for 2014. It's a human risk to exaggerate the income figure. All the figures are estimates, so they're subjective. There's a great human tendency to exaggerate the income figures and to minimize the expense figures, hoping, you know, it'll work out that way. And I always prefer to budget by being very, very conservative on income and, you know, conservative on expense. Assume expenses might be a little bit more than you think, you know, allow for inflation, and don't count too much. And it's very, but on the other hand, you want to make the figures come out. So we just have to be aware of that. And there's a little dose of positive thinking in these income figures. I mean, you know, so we just have to, that's another thing.
May I add, that's why it's a pleasure to work with you. We have our disagreements. But, you know, I look at that from the side of marketing person, sales, that's where I come from. He's looking at it from the financial side. And I've learned I've learned a lot working with him.
Okay, I have one further comment to make, and it's sort of a comment that you could think about yourselves. I don't want to impose it on anyone else. I started doing volunteer work in 1984. That's when I retired from the Navy. I was immediately asked by the Bishop of New Jersey to be on the board of the Evergreens, which is the Episcopal home in New Jersey. And subsequently, I moved back to Washington. I stayed on the board for 4 more years. The round trip from where I was living in Northern Virginia to New Jersey and back was 475 miles. I was going up there twice a month. And I made a commitment at the time. They offered to pay my expenses, and I made a commitment that if I was going to be a volunteer on a board like that, I would not ask for any reimbursement. And I've kept that commitment ever since. I've traveled for the North Carolina Residents Association. I've traveled for the NaCCRA, and I've not yet made an application for reimbursement for my travel expenses. And I don't think that's for everybody. Not everybody can afford that. But I think it's something we ought to
I did it for
consider.
3 years without reimbursements,
You know?
traveling from Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I did, that's another way in which we can save money. But I don't think that can be binding on everyone. I just wanted to point it out.
I think your point's well made, Walton. Another thing we can do is to increase our efforts to get support from a state association and from our communities.
And you know, one of the other things we've tossed around for about 4 years, ads in Lifeline.
Yeah.
There are other possibilities. I don't want to have to do that, but you know, that's.
Yeah.
You mean ads for donations?
No, well, if you had and I saw a newsletter from another organization that never had an ad, and then now they have in their say this is the brochure.
Yeah.
They have about a half page of ads for.
Oh, I see.
One thing or another.
Right.
To for you know
For insurance companies or something like that, yeah, right.
So
right.
those are all possibilities. I don't want to have to do it, but.
Well, bottom line, you know, we're going to continue to look
at ways in which we can cut our operating
And we
costs.
also
Yeah.
could encourage donations. I know it's on the sheet
Yeah,
here
okay.
Bruce,
So,
lifetime membership stays the same as of now.
currently.
Until March 1st.
To March 1st. They all change.
Yeah, and then they all change,
Okay.
and that, I don't have that figure.
Okay, final item on the agenda. Collaboration with other companies, organizations that share our mission and vision. We've taken, sort of independently stabs at this in the past. I've, as I said, started some discussions with Cigna. I made the decision to break off those discussions because there wasn't strong support from the board. And we've sort of had, I don't know where we stand on that, frankly. Certainly there's no message that was sent out, yeah, this is worth something, we want to explore it. We really need to have a long-term membership program.
But you're looking at it just from our side though. I don't think Cigna was interested in 1,000 people.
Well, that's your judgment,
Oh, I see. Okay.
I looked at it differently, but at no time did I ever suggest that that's the only company. There are a lot of good arguments to say that Cigna was not an ideal partner because they were not big in the individual market. And they've changed that. They've gone out and made a number of acquisitions. It's a different company today. But historically, their strength has been in the group side.
Well, they gave us a letter saying that most of their products, they were looking for a 50,000 member.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
They would have been ideal.
But, we can argue about the details, but what's important is conceptually, do we want to do something like this? Or are we happy with our membership program now that's going to serve us well for the next 5, 10 years? And we are going to really have a prominent position. I've talked with Bennett about this. And he says, it's something that I think you ought to pursue. I just warn you, be careful of making alliances with companies that have baggage.
That have
Is
what?
this Bennett?
Baggage.
Bennett said this to
Baggage.
you, be
Oh,
careful.
baggage.
Baggage,
Yeah.
baggage.
Means what?
The AARP is a good example,
Yeah.
okay. But
Tell us how that's an example.
I'm sorry?
How is AARP an example? What has happened to AARP with their marriage with insurance companies?
Well, because the perception among some people is that they benefit AARP more than the members.
Right.
Okay, that's the problem. But he says there are other organizations out there that share your mission and vision, have stronger lobbying capabilities, have more assets to reach out into communities where we are not at now. And the reason that I bring this thing up is I think the board has to make a decision. Do we want to explore this? Do we want to, or are we satisfied that we have a kind of a strategy now that's going to take care of us for the next 5 or 10 years?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And-
But thank you, Dad, Ron.
yeah.
How do you perceive that?
Well, I think the idea, my impression so far is that you're going to have to build some partnerships that are going to help produce revenue. The evidence seems to be that if we keep on the plan that we're on now, that it's going to take a long time, if ever, to produce all the revenue that we're going to need to, quote, move to the next level. So we're kind of stuck in there. So it's going to take time to produce revenue through the techniques that we have. And the question is, can you speed that up with integrity, not getting yourself scrambled into the commercial aspect like AARP has done? Can you do that? I think it has to be explored. Exploration does not mean do.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Exploration means let's have a conversation with selected potential partners or collaborators to see what it would look like. We know what it looks like with leading age, or we're getting a clearer picture all the time. And it's not, potentially what I would say at this point is it's not there. But where do we get it? Or are we satisfied that we can produce enough revenue to do the things we need to do? And I'm still looking for the opportunity to have somebody to say to me, this is what we mean by moving to the next level, because that benchmarks for me what needs to happen, and it gives me some clues as to how much revenue do I need to get that done.
Let me pick up.
At some point, I hope I'm allowed to speak.
Sure enough.
You were next.
Okay.
I think, I've heard people talk about growing the business.
Please identify yourself.
Oh, this is Jack Cumming, and I'll try to speak up, I forgot. I've heard people talk about growing the business. I consider this an organization that looks for integrity, service, and achievement in pursuit of the membership. We're there to serve a membership. And Joe is absolutely right. We had very deep conversations with Cigna because they had a great advantage. They don't now have an agent-sold long-term care product. And so we could have come up with a true value in the long-term care area that could really have given a great value to our membership. And we had a turnkey reinsurance through Life Care Assurance in Woodland Hills, so that Cigna would have had no risk. They would have reinsured out the entire risk. The administration, underwriting, everything would have been handled turnkey. All they had to do was to lend us their paper and their name. And when they got to the 1,000 people, they were not willing to go any further. And as far as I know, it never went up their executive ranks because we're too small to matter. At the same time, our membership proposition has been so weak that out of the membership that we have in the States, 13,000 in Florida alone, we've only been able to draw fewer than 1,000 members nationwide. I think at some point, the attention of the board has to focus on the value that we provide to the members. Now, right now, most of our money goes to pay for an administrative person who we instruct what to do, and he does just what we tell him to do, and it goes for officer travel. Now, if we go out to the membership and say, what's the value you get from NaCCRA? Well, you get the officers, they go to nice meetings, and we have an administrative thing that helps manage your membership, and it's quite professional and has an address, and they keep the records. So that's the value we're offering the membership.
And the lifeline.
And the lifeline. But there's,
And NaCCRA.
but I've heard people talk about possibly reducing the publication schedule or the size of the lifeline. We're talking about electronic distribution, all sorts of things. But you're right. The main perceived value that we provide the members is the lifeline. Period. And
How about the website, the NaCCRA U?
Yeah, NaCCRA.
well, that NaCCRA doesn't own that. Just
Yeah,
for the record.
that's correct.
But I mean-
People utilize it.
It was something that I was willing to offer, but I was, the expectation is that NaCCRA is going to become a positive organization. And so, you know, it goes to the donor thing. If you're going to attract
Well, we're
donors,
just
you
talking
have
about
to have
current
a,
perceptions, though. We're just talking about current perceptions.
you have to have a positive orientation.
And then the
We
model
have,
laws.
we have many board meetings, and we almost never talk about the value to the membership. We have two committees that are oriented toward membership. Walt Boyers, and he's been doing quite a good job of getting in. That's helped us with the membership enormously. And we have the Resident Relations Committee on the Bill of Rights concept. and I don't think we had a report at this meeting
No, we did not.
from that committee, so I
Yes,
assume.
I submitted a written report.
Yeah, and
Oh,
those
okay,
are
well,
all
I
that are
just,
gonna be in
I just haven't seen it, but,
It's all, the committee's only been in existence for 3 months during a financial
yeah,
crisis.
no, I'm not, I'm just saying, okay, I'm not disparaging anybody.
Okay.
Please
All right.
do not misunderstand. Sometimes if you deliver a message, people attack the messenger.
No.
The message is that we're only as strong as the value we bring to the membership. At some point, we
Amen.
need to focus
Amen.
on the value we're bringing to the membership. If you don't want to hear it, you can go off on your own and do whatever you're going to do. But that's a message that you've got to get across. And if a board member doesn't hear that message, I can assure you that the members at large are not hearing that message.
Jack is right on, and let me give you a specific example. Earlier today, we heard residents say, CCRCs want to get out of type A contracts. They want to shift the risk back to the residents. The residents that are holding long-term care, individual long-term care policies, have some protection, but the premiums are going out of sight. And sometimes they lose it because the companies are getting out of the business. Providers, leading agents, clients, they want to help the association. In their trade association, we want to help you. You want to get out of the risk, you want to get out of it, but you want to do it in a way that doesn't hurt your residents so everybody wins. Let's be creative. Let's work together. Let's find an insurer that's able and willing to develop a group-based long-term disability policy designed specifically to type B and type C contracts. We'll work with you. That's an extraordinary opportunity, in my view, for us to be creative and work with leading age and develop a partnership that brings real added benefits to our membership. That's the way we're going to grow.
And we gotta grow.
And we got to have the guts to do it, to take the risk, and be creative and imaginative, and make people feel excited about it. And in the absence of a plan to do that, we're going to be a long time cover of 1,500 people out of 800,000.
So these are things that we really have to be thinking about, and with our president-elect who is eminently qualified, we're gonna have to really think and plan and do.
Yeah, and I don't think we necessarily have to, put this to a vote tonight, but because we need a specific plan, we need a little research,
I was
talk
gonna
to some
say, you
people,
should research some things, Joe.
as to develop a specific proposal. But I would like to leave this meeting with the feeling that everyone is in agreement that we should do it. That I'm not wasting my time, or someone else in our organization is wasting their time because they're pursuing something with American Mutual or some other organization that shares the same mission that we do. It's as simple as just picking up the phone and calling some of these people and doing a little exploring.
Well, do some exploring and see what you can find. Yes, Jack?
I want Charlie to hear this also as to how far Ruth and the board has taken us in the last 3 years. It was 6 years ago at a NaCCRA meeting at Ingleside at Rock Creek that Charlie Pauk nominated me to be president. Marlene Varner seconded it, and I was elected president without having been consulted in advance. That's how that occurred. That's how that occurred. And so you know how far this woman has taken us and the board over these past 3 years.
What she has done has been extraordinary under the most difficult of conditions.
The only unfortunate thing that has occurred, during the 8 months I was in West Virginia, a person with serious mental health problems wrote Bob a letter.
Let's,
Oh, no, I'm just saying, and was confirmed by Ruth. And as recently as yesterday, I had a letter from the 12 co-signers apologizing for ever having signed on to that letter. I was president of the Residents Association there when I had to read this letter received from Bob telling me that I should cease and desist from recruiting members.
And you've recruited a huge number. Our membership at Ingleside and Rock Creek, at Maplewood or Bridgeport or whatever, what's it called? The one in West Virginia.
Maplewood.
And at Thomas Circle, they are in the top 5 in the country.
Madam President, my hand is up.
yes, sir. Yes, Charlie?
I'd like to comment to what Jack said. Jack, I'd like for you to get out on your knees and say a prayer for me tonight for having all the confidence I had in you those 6 years ago. I think you've done a great job. You've moved us to a point where Ruth was in a position to move us even further. But I listened to some good comments tonight. I particularly like what Jack had to say about members and value of membership. I still stand on what I told the board in Lakeland. I think every board member should get 100 individual members of the community they live in. They should get the community to join in the community they live in. And I still think 50,000 new members within a year is a reasonable approach if we all get behind it. If Florida can go from 0 to 13,000 in a year, nationally we should at least be able to go from 1,000 to 50,000 in a year. And I'd like to see us devote our efforts to getting that done.
I think you had 700 when you started, Charlie. I don't think you started at 0.
But we thank you for that vote. And we're going to, as they say in the RL, try, sir. And we're all going to try, sir. And we do thank you for your counsel, for your love, and for your encouragement. And I guess that's it for tonight.
I'm turning it back over to you, I'm done.
And so with no further ado.
Good night, Joe.
And I wish you'd give us a closing
All
prayer.
right, let us pray. We thank you, God. You are the holder of memory and hope. We bless you for the memories that we cherish and the hopes that we hold. Be with us, bless Ruth, and bless Ron, and keep us all sane and focused to the task that you have called us. Amen.
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 Thank you all for coming.
Very
I
good
do not
meeting.
know what happened to
We
Marlene.
really didn't need to approve the budget, it's gonna happen.
Did we have to do that? Approve the budget?
I think
We did.
I think we did.
I think you want to have it worked over by financial. Well, I know you're financial,
You went and
but take all
Ben's
those
been
factors
over
in
it.
there.
Do we need we do need to approve the budget, yes. Didn't we approve the budget? I mean, did we?
I
Well-
don't remember voting on that.
Well, I think we've modified the budget. Do we even know what it is at this point? I don't
You have
know
to
what
make
it
those
is.
changes. We'll
Well,
have to make those changes.
because we postponed the effective date
Yeah.
Okay.
so that's,
we'll-
So what,
that changes the budget.
Well, we
right
also need with the budget a set of the budget assumptions. I mean, one assumption is that we have 100% persistency of membership. Those assumptions need to be stated, or that they're always included with budgets.
so we'll get that.
And
And I don't
we
need for you to
de
do it
facto
tomorrow.
agreed that we're gonna have a bigger deficit in 2014 than we were planning on.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
okay.
as Dan
So-
reminded us, rightly so. Yeah.
We need to basically,
Approve.
to try to state it clearly, what we need to do is adapt or make the adjustments in this budget that were created by the motions.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
And then approve it as,
So
That's
at the
correct.
next
You have
meeting,
to-
at the next,
Or by email,
or
though.
by email.
How about
Okay.
email?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I thank you.
Let us
Thank you,
Done.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Meeting. Very
Now-
good meeting.
Yeah.
What I
Dan, I
wanted
think
to-
with a written thing like that, it's easier by email, because then people can study it.
What I told you this morning, I'll just tell you once more, because I need to go, anyway, we're gonna be at Stone Ridge in Mystic. I'm investigating, there are some, 4 guest rooms, we're gonna try to square everybody away with that. There are also many, many hotels and motels around, and most of them serve breakfasts ahead of time, so that's gonna make our lives much easier. I'll let you know the plans, but you are so welcome. And we want you to bring your families and stay a couple of days. It's because we have the aquarium and Charles W. Morgan's going out to sea in 2014. And we're proud, and I'm proud to have been your president, and I'm proud to be going
You
out.
leave the impression it'll be better than this palace.
As they say, you better believe it.
Dates again are April 10th.
Don't put that in the minutes, please.
I'll give you the exact